This invasion had been postponed 3 times now, but a meteorologist from the RAF, also an astronomer, came up to Eisenhower and said, "Today is the day." And so, with the conditions right and under the cover of dawn, Operation Dynamo had begun.
FreeIntermusic.com layout track.
Operation Dynamo, also known as D-Day, was the biggest invasion in European history. It saw 156,000 combat troops and another 100,000 paratroopers. This invasion was meant to humiliate, which it certainly did, because all of Erwin Rommel's work had been put to shame. Now, I will cover a brief history of the Americans, the British, and the Germans. So, let's start with the Americans. Now, thousands of troops have been piling into Britain, ready for an invasion across the Channel. And today had come, the 4th of June, 1944. But when they go and say, "Oh, the conditions are right," they get a report, "The conditions for tonight are rough. Postpone it." They postponed it once on the 28th of May, and they postponed it again on the 4th of June. But, as I said in the intro, a meteorologist came in, also an astronomer, and told the generals, "The conditions are right, the sea is calm, go for it." And they did. Now, the British had been doing Operation Dynamo in secret, gathering photos, evidence, everything they needed so that they could land knowing exactly what was there. And Germans, well, Hitler knew that an invasion in France was coming, he just didn't know where. And so the Atlantic Wall, which was made in 1940, had to be inspected. This is where we bring in old Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox. He was sent to the Atlantic Wall to inspect the troops. He was absolutely stuck for words with what he saw. New recruits, old veterans, and no defences whatsoever. The Atlantic Wall wasn't even a wall, it was just a couple of troops playing around. And so he got to work rebuilding the Atlantic Wall. Pillboxes, machine gun nests, trenches, barbed wire, mines, Czech hedgehogs, sticks in the ground to bog down landing craft, gates to block enemies. He put everything into this Atlantic Wall. And on the day of the invasion, where he could have supported the troops and gave them orders, he was away. It was his wife's birthday. Only midway through the day did he hear about the invasion. And by then, it was too late. Now, the Allied forces landed at Gold, Sword and Juno. These were the English and Canadian landings. And then Omaha and Utah, and Point du Hoc for the Americans. Omaha Beach got it bad. They got it the worst. Nearly 3,000 casualties laid on the beach. But they still took it. Point du Hoc, they had to scale cliffs. And at Utah, there'd been a mistake. Once the troops were on the ground, they noticed something. They noticed that it wasn't quite right. And they'd landed at the wrong point. So, what did they do? They just said, "We'll call this Utah," and continue the war from there. Now, Hitler had 3 panzer divisions holding back in case of the invasion. But only one of them could be commanded by Rommel. The other 2 could only be launched with Hitler's approval. But for Hitler, he was asleep. Now, everyone knew not to wake Hitler, especially when he's in a deep sleep. And Hitler was always a late riser. Now, the British secrecy had devoted all the German resources to Calais, the most likely invasion point and the closest point to Dover, when actually they were in Normandy. When Hitler woke up and he was told of the invasion, he was like, excellent, what I planned for. The generals themselves knew that Hitler was talking malarkey. Now, the Battle of Normandy spread across all of northern France, and what Hitler intended to happen didn't happen. And by August of the same year, Paris had been liberated. Germany was crumbling before the defeat of the Allies. Soviets from the east, and the Americans and British from the west and from the south. So, that is it for D-Day. I hope you did enjoy. Now, next week, we will be looking at Hitler's last-ditch effort to try and break the Americans and British.